the stereotypical experience is it's this like old clunky channel. You got a bunch of spreadsheets, you got to find a printer, you got to blast it out to a bunch of people, you got to wait a couple months and then try and find more spreadsheets to figure out what the ROI was. I think that's how a lot of the industry still operates today. I think what's made it more attractive over time is one, the innovation that's happening in the space. So integrated with Shopify, launch, it's more like Klaviyo for direct mail now on the retention side. It's like Meta for direct mail on the acquisition side. Real-time tracking, all of that stuff has made it much easier, and it's become more attractive relative to other channels over time too.
Gentlemen, please join me up here on stage real quick. Who am I talking to? We'll start on the left. Come on down closer to me.
Hey, my name is Bryant. I am actually not a CEO today. When I signed up for this panel, I was. I am the CMO of a company called Bums Roses, which is a new role as of last week.
Hey everyone, I'm Brendan. I'm the SVP of Marketing at Fresh Clean Threads. We are a San Diego-based apparel brand focused on building the best fitting wardrobes essentials for nearly every body.
And I'm Michael Epstein, one of the co-founders and co-CEO of PostPilot. We're a direct mail automation platform, and I've been on the operating side, on the brand side for 25 years, so come from that world.
Well, this is a good topic to bring up because we're this close away from the largest season of our year. Our Super Bowl moment's coming up. How would you guys define top of funnel? And before you get to you, which you're gonna be the last one to answer, would you put direct mail in top of funnel? How would you define top of funnel right now?
For us, we break it up between our two customer cohorts. So we have people buying for newborn babies, which can either be an expecting mom or a gift giver, at a baby shower, or people buying for older kids. So for prospecting for the expecting first-time mom, I would say somebody who doesn't have any kids is in their last few trimesters about to have a kid, and then our goal is to go and find them before they do their baby registry so that the 20 people they buy or they invite over to their party to buy them gifts from us. And then the big kid stuff is more traditional apparel, like show pictures to parents of cute kids in pajamas and hope they like the brand.
That niche is why I love that so much, because it's a for me, for you.
Yeah.
You can buy it for yourself, but it's a lot of the gifting segment.
It's a lot of gifts.
I get a 5-month-old, so like this, everything that we're getting is stuff coming into us. So your top of funnel is, I would say there's a lot of remarketing and there's a lot of actually like build up in your top of funnel because it's still a lot of nurturing. Would you say is your creative too different from the top to the bottom, you think?
It's pretty different. The top of funnel for pregnant, expecting moms is a pretty small TAM. There's 3.5 million babies born in America every year, and that's limited. Like you can only sell to them. Or people buying gifts for like grandparents or aunts or uncles, friends, stuff like that. So the way you educate a prospect for that audience is going to be very different than somebody who already knows your brand, already likes your product, and essentially you show them a picture of a new print. They either like the print or they don't. If they like it, they'll buy it. But there's a lot more education for true top of funnel prospecting.
This makes sense. How would you define top of funnel for your brand?
Yeah, so we have, for someone to go from the top to bottom of funnel, on average throughout the year, it takes around 2 to 4 weeks. During BFCM, that is a bit longer because there's people that have been sitting on the fence. And so, I define top of funnel as filling that awareness part of the funnel throughout the year. And while someone says a channel is a certain part of the funnel, every channel sits somewhere on the spectrum of hitting consumers across that funnel. And I think you asked, would I put direct mail in that? I think yes, but not isolated to top of funnel. I think we've used it more like cross funnel.
Because when we were running it, we actually use direct mail as a way to refill the top of funnel, because we actually were running most of our campaigns for lapsed. It was so far long ago that they actually didn't realize wow, we either A, bought or they unsubscribed. And so I was actually using this as a tactic just to kind of get them back into the top, because technically they've already bought, but it's been so long. Do you see that often with a lot of brands, kind of like trying to re-engage and build?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of brands like to start lower in the funnel and then actually work their way up, which makes sense because there's just so much low-hanging fruit. And it was a great, what Breeze did and your brands consistently see big, easy wins with that reactivation play, because these are customers that have gone well beyond the expected time you would normally see them back again. They've been on your email list, they're not engaging with your email list, your SMS, and it's just a lot cheaper to get back in front of them, reactivate them before you lose them for good than it is to get cold acquisition. But brands then start to work up the funnel. As you have success in these lower stages of the funnel, you can work up to retargeting, so still acquiring customers, but match, people who've signed up for your email list but never bought. People who are browsing your website but never bought. And then as you continue to see success, then you can start to play in the areas that these guys have had a lot of success in, like Caden Lane, as Bryant was describing, able to target expectant mothers in their third trimester. Like, it was that precise of targeting, and that's what led to so much success with that brand, because it's such a well-defined customer. We can find people that have that specific attribute and get in front of them.
Like how?
We have a ton of data. We have billions of attributes on hundreds of millions of US consumers that we've all aggregated into our own data set.
Okay.
Sourced from a variety of sources, as well as our own proprietary data from working with thousands of brands. And we're able to essentially now build lookalike models the way Meta does. So it's basically like Meta for mail when it comes to building cold prospecting audiences. And one of those attributes is a mother who has a lot of these specific attributes, like the Caden Lane customer does, and we know is based on their expected due date is in their third trimester of pregnancy.
Moms sign up for registries, and they put in their due date. So they volunteer the information that gets sold to data aggregators so that marketers like me can buy it.
This is wild. Because for us, our space, it's regulated space. So we were like nervous, can we even send this? Should we send this? And the short answer is we should send this at all times. Like our overall, like our marketing mix, we spend majority on Meta, can't get away from it. We spend a second majority on Google. We spend a third coming into Twitter/TikTok. And then the last is we have carved out budgets. And it took us a while to get going. But now that we're in this routine of this channel, and I'm very curious on you guys what you're thinking about and what your other brands do. This creative, specifically on one of these, needs to go to a page or an experience that is talking about what's going on here. Like, we are trying not to drop on .com or just like the normal homepage. Is that something that you guys have built out from the asset that was created here all the way to landing at home and then getting onto their own landing page experience?
For prospecting top of funnel campaigns, yes. Sending them to a landing page usually works better.
From one of these?
From a mailer. For bottom of funnel win back or loyalty campaigns, I usually just send them to the homepage. So it sort of depends. Like in the baby category specifically, the mailer might focus on the perfect newborn baby outfit. You would send them to a landing page that would help you build out, like, here's your swaddle blanket, here's your knockdown, pick this accessory, pair it with a bow. Like, you almost walk the customer through the journey and educate them. And then for everyone else, just send them to the website.
Yeah, I mean, one call out I want to make on this is we're assuming that people are scanning the QR code to convert. And
good point.
Like we've done like pretty extensive holdout testing when we pick a segment, whether it's prospects or retention, split it like 50-50, 80-20, right, depending on your confidence level. And you can measure the incremental conversions generated from the mailers. And if you actually compare that to either the QR code scans or the coupon usage, it's like a small fraction, which shows, right, people see the mailer, it sits on their desk, they pull out their phone, they go to the office next day, they shop there, they come home, they're bored in their Uber, they shop again, right? And so it's more about, I think, landing pages are important, but more for like digital direct channels like Meta, et cetera. But yeah, that's just my take.
Basically, it's dropping the homepage. It's kind of like getting to the main site is kind of what you think.
Yeah, so Brendan raises a really important point. A lot of people say, how do you measure the results? Well, do you just use a coupon code or do you use a QR? And to his point, only a fraction of people, even if you've got an offer on your card, only a fraction of those people end up using the code on the card. They either find something else when they get to your site, they find something else online, they don't care, whatever, they forget. So the easiest way, one, we're natively integrated with your Shopify store, so we know one-to-one. A person at that household went on to complete a purchase in your store, and we show you that in a real-time dashboard. We know exactly when that happens. But as Brendan said, you can use holdout groups as well to isolate incrementality, because we know that some folks who received the card also might have converted off email. They might have converted off a Facebook ad. So at Fresh Clean, really sophisticated holdout strategy of just saying we're going to run a bunch of different tests on a bunch of different audiences, a bunch of different cohorts. We're going to hold out a portion of those recipients. 80% of those people will get a card. The other 20% will see all of the exact same marketing. The only difference is they just won't receive the card. And you can track the performance of each of those cohorts, again, in a dashboard. And you can say, we know that the incremental lift from those folks receiving the card was X. And if that's profitable, you can feel really good that this was an effective campaign, regardless of how many people ended up using the code or scanning the QR that was on that card specifically.
So for Q4, how are you, what does your plan look like? A, tell me media mix, and then B, how is direct mail going to be involved in this Q4 push?
Yeah, we spend heavily on Facebook and Google, like everyone else. And I'm 1 week into the new role, so figuring it out. But the way I like to work direct mail into a Q4 strategy is typically apparel brands will launch their seasonal products a few months before Black Friday. We're trying to hit all of our lists, SMS, email retention lists. We're trying to sell out as many of the SKUs as we can. There'll be a point where anyone who has received emails, did not engage with them, has made a purchase in the last 12 months, but for whatever reason they haven't engaged with the holiday collection, we'll send them a direct mail piece. And we'll do it in time to where the 4-week window isn't too close to the cutoff for Christmas shipping. And we use it as a mid-funnel strategy to convert people who weren't converting from a text message.
Yeah, your turn, bro.
Yeah, so I actually met the PostPilot team about a year ago ahead of last BFCM. And so we did a mini test in the month of September of picking our minimum budget across our various segments and kind of casting wide and learning not to grow contribution margin dollars from that initial send, but to learn so that we could pick the winning segments and kind of go big for Black Friday. And so we segmented it to, I think we were talking, Jimmy kicked it off with RFM actually at the start of this, and we took a similar approach for direct mail where it was actually interesting that we split it both based on the recency, the frequency, but then also, as he was talking about, on email engagement, SMS engagement. But what we found was the incrementality on the email SMS audiences was almost just as big as the unengaged audiences. So I think just that extra touch point is still just very helpful. And so even though someone's engaged, if there's incremental contribution margin dollars to be had, we were all for it.
Where would you say, if you haven't done this before, just start here?
Yeah, so again, Brendan.
Those are both very they've kind of done it, they kind of know what they're doing, the program.
Yeah, so I'll piggyback off what Brendan was saying, and that is that the mistake that we see brands make in Q4 is they wait to do a test over Black Friday. So they're like, okay, we're gonna dip our toe in the water and we're gonna do that over Black Friday. And the problem is that they get a great result over Black Friday, but then they're like, well, I wish we could go bigger, but we just missed the big event, and you can't go back and expand from there. So what he did was exactly right, which is start that testing like now, September, October, get the data points now so that you understand what audiences, what campaigns are profitable, and then you can scale those over Black Friday and Cyber Monday and into, throughout the holiday season versus starting there and then you're like, great, I just left all this money on the table because I just missed the main event. And I did a tiny budget or a tiny test.
Well, I mean, this is basically how we rolled ours out, right? We did fully lapsed customers, and then we're going to go start hitting like more deeper remarketing, and then work our way up to kind of like the top of the funnel area. Mainly because I don't know if this experience for our customers, like I don't know if this is the demographic for them, and that's always been my worry is like, is this the thing that my customers are going to be? And I'm learning across the demos that are buying is middle-aged, like 30, 40, 50, because we have the older demographic trying to buy our type of drink. And they're loving mail. This is like the thing that they do more than I want to know. And so I think this is an opportunity that a lot of people are just not really like, why do people think this is an older thing? Like, why is direct mail like, nah, it's old school?
Sure, I mean, it has that connotation for sure. People picture it as this like old legacy channel, and in a lot of ways it is. It's been around for 100 years. It's worked, but it's just been, the stereotypical experience is it's this like old clunky channel. You got a bunch of spreadsheets, you got to find a printer, you got to blast it out to a bunch of people, you got to wait a couple months and then try and find more spreadsheets to figure out what the ROI was. I think that's, that's how a lot of the industry still operates today. But I think what's made it more attractive over time is one, the innovation that's happening in the space. So integrated with Shopify, launch, it's more like Klaviyo for direct mail now on the retention side. It's like Meta for direct mail on the acquisition side. Real-time tracking, all of that stuff has made it much easier, and it's become more attractive relative to other channels over time too. So obviously it used to be one, the mailbox was cluttered with all junk mail and your inbox was pristine. Now it's kind of flip-flopped. The mailbox is what now doesn't have a lot in it. Email inbox is what's overcrowded, so you've got that dynamic. Digital saturation on Meta, people just not engaging as much, but also digital channels have become more expensive over time relative to direct mail. It used to be the price of a postage stamp was really high relative to the price of a click on Meta. Now, the price of a postage stamp remains fixed, and Meta costs continue to rise, and now it looks much more attractive from a cost and ROI perspective.
Yeah, this is the part that I'm most interested in. Things are just getting a little bit more expensive, right? Like, you guys, what are you seeing right now in like kind of your area or the people you talk to, other brand owners, maybe other heads of growth that are making like mistakes on their paid acquisition channels? What would you say?
In terms of costs, comparing it to other acquisition channels, I agree with Michael. Like, CPMs are going to go up. Facebook's going to become more expensive infinitely, probably, forever. This is just another channel that can make your ecosystem a little more effective. I know PostPilot has some tools that can target people who have signed up for an email list but have not made a purchase, and they'll go and they'll buy the data to match the email to a physical address. And you can set different triggers, like they visited your site, they received X number of emails, they haven't made a purchase, now you can send them a direct mail. I think the channels that are cheapest and easiest, start there, obviously, like send an email or run a Facebook ad. If you're not getting a conversion through one of those channels, I don't think the answer is keep doing it forever. Maybe in the beginning, if you're really small and just getting started, it's easier to turn on digital marketing and scale for a while with that. But then you hit a point where there's 500,000 people in your email list who have never made a purchase. You've already tried uploading that to Meta and running a lookalike audience or targeting them directly. If that didn't work, what are you going to do? And tools like PostPilot are really, really easy to just upload a graphic and hit send. And it works. So I think everyone should try it. Like, it's a great tool to have as part of the media mix, and then different brands, probably based on scale and where they're at in revenue, like that would dictate how much you invest in where it fits in the mix.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I'd say like one of just the most important parts of like paid media is incrementality. And like we use House, they're an amazing incrementality testing partner. And I mean, I think even some of like the bigger, more advanced brands run quarterly incrementality tests with House. However, it's still like relatively difficult. It's not as easy as, right, just putting money into Meta and having it spit out a CAC to you the next day. The one part that I think is pretty cool about direct mail is you actually don't need an incrementality testing tool. It's part of the like direct mail PostPilot offering through that holdout testing we were talking about. So like that allows you to be very data driven and you don't have to trust the in-platform numbers you do on some of these other tools.
What would you say like people need to be paying attention to for this Q4?
What was the question?
What do you think people need to be paying attention to in terms of how many they need to build out? Because I see the difference between a full or just kind of like a single page. Because I know when we were having to upload our area, like it was, like I wanted to make the specific type of creative and the specific type of thing for it. And I feel as though we overthought it a little bit when we kind of just should have just went just to get it live.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do the creative for you, so we know what works. We do this for 95% of the brands that we work with, and it just goes a lot faster. Obviously, if you have creative, you can upload it. We can hand you off a creative file. Your team can touch it up and give it back, whatever is easiest. But typically, we generally know what works. We follow your brand guide, create an asset in a couple of days, and make it just that much faster. But in terms of formats, so you've got something like this, postcard, 6x9 postcard, really fast and easy, great for retention type campaigns in particular, because it really only, the customer just needs more of a reminder or a nudge. So something like this gives them that nudge at the lowest cost, and you want to optimize for cost. As you start to work up the funnel, you can start to explore other types of formats. So here's like what we call our catalog, and it allows you to tell more of the brand story, but it's triggered just like a postcard. So literally like one goes out at a time in real time, but it's a little more expensive, allows you to just present more information, educate people a little bit more, tell them your brand story, show more of your assortment. And then as you start to get into bigger prospecting campaigns, you could look at something like this, which is like a catalog. And again, these you have to run in a little more lead time and a little bit larger quantity. These literally you could do one and you could have it out today or tomorrow. But that's just how we think about different formats. Again, something like this is great because you can really show a lot of assortment, great for apparel brands in particular, where you want to be able to show categories, assortment, styles, things like that. And this actually costs about a postage stamp. It's about 70 cents all in. So again, relative to the cost of a click on Meta, relative to just direct mail costs in general, it's actually, right in line.
Yeah, that was my final question I had, is like, you guys rolled out your lookalike audiences that were like something that we were very excited. That's why we kind of did it, because we can't find those audiences anywhere. Can you tell us a little bit more about how like they're able to use it now for an acquisition for a top of funnel channel? Because up until this point, I've only thought of it as a lapse remarketing play.
Yeah, so it's still great, low-hanging fruit, still a ton on reactivation and retention. So again, you've got these folks that might have gone years without coming back. They've been on your email list the whole time. In some cases they unsubscribed, in some cases they're just not engaging, but these guys and a lot of folks, easy wins to start there, especially over Black Friday. We have brands that go back 4 or 5 years into their customer file and are still profitably reactivating those customers at a lower reactivation cost than pure net new cold traffic. And then again, as you work your way up into cold prospecting, you should think about it. Most brands are looking to target like a 1 to 2x ROAS on cold prospecting, similar to what they're getting on Facebook and Meta. This isn't it's not like you get a 1.5x on Meta and then you're going to get like a 12x on cold prospecting and direct mail. The idea is diversify your channels. Don't put all your eggs in the Meta basket. we've all seen what that looks like. Most of us have probably gone through iOS 14. Most of us are on D2C Twitter seeing like, I can't log in this week, I can't, like, we know the risk that
it's a
involves.
shit show.
Yeah. So it's a great way to diversify and find additional channels that can help you scale beyond what you can do concentrating all of your acquisition efforts in a channel like Meta. But now it works a lot like Meta in that you can build these audiences, these lookalike audiences, and launch and test different audiences, different creative, and track that just like you would in a dashboard on Meta, but in a completely new channel.
I appreciate you guys. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much. And obviously, Mike, you've been an OG for so long, and you love this community environment, so I thank you, brother, for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Hold on. Any questions? We got questions.
Oh.
Yeah, sit on down.
Hi, how's it going? My question's for Michael. So I run a pet brand for pet birds, and our clientele is mostly...
Hold it closer, brother.
Oh yeah, our clientele is mostly people age 60 and above. So do you think actual physical mail would help retention more so than email for that specific demographic?
Yeah, and did you say 60 and above?
60 and above.
And you said pets.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah, so this is actually a misconception. A lot of people are like, well, my customers are really old, so that's probably the right fit for you guys. And conversely, it's like my customers are millennials. Do they really want direct mail? I mean, Nick could vouch for it as well with his demographic. It's actually more of a novelty and there's a lot of statistics that support it. I won't rattle them off, but there's a lot of statistics that support the younger demographics are not, if you look at their phones, they've got like the 1,000 unread SMS messages and like their email inboxes haven't been looked at for forever. Whereas they get something in the mail, it's like, oh, actually I'm not used to this. It's like a pattern interrupt and they pay attention to it. To your question about older audiences, yeah, I mean, it definitely works there too. They're very engaged. I was talking to someone outside who we work with who has similar demographic hearing aids, and yeah, I mean, they're very receptive. They look forward to going and getting their mail every day, and they pay attention to what's in there. So
Dude,
yeah,
I love my Costco catalog. I get that thing, I'm like cranking through that stuff. I saw another hand right here. Yep. One, and then right there.
Hey guys, so I'm actually really close to launching my first PostPilot campaign. Like I was actually reviewing like our first creatives back.
Did he convince you to go faster or go slower?
Oh, faster. Well, so like my question is really just like, really all four of you, obviously massive proponents of direct mail and PostPilot, but just given the position that I'm in, like, what are the sort of pitfalls that I should look out for? How do I make sure that like I'm just approaching this the right way? Because it's been just to give you a ton of credit, like it's been an incredibly smooth process. So much to the fact that I'm like, wait, like what am I missing here? What am I not seeing here?
That's a fucking great question.
My call out would be make sure when you're evaluating success, you're factoring in your cost of delivery and therefore solving for contribution margin of the mailers, not just revenue. So like PostPilot doesn't have everyone's cost of delivery in platform, so you're not going to see it in platform. But right, if you get $1 incremental like of revenue and it costs you whatever 50, 60 cents or something to fulfill that order, if the mailer also costs you 50 cents, like you might say, hey, I made $1, but you actually made no contribution margin dollars. And so just as you go from PostPilot reporting in the UI, kind of have your back of the envelope math to assess what that means for your contribution margin.
If you're doing prospecting, I would say all data is not created equal. I've tested a lot of prospecting data points for different demographics, and some of them have worked better than I expected, and some of them didn't work at all. And so even for something like selling kids clothes, you can't just buy people in America who have kids and think that sending them a postcard with a picture of pajamas is going to convert, obviously. But every industry is going to be different, but depending on what you're selling and how you would identify your ideal customer, I would spend a lot of time really thinking through 3 or 4 hypotheses of what a good prospecting prospect or data point would be, and then run a few small tests, and then once you find one that really works, scale it from there.
Yeah, we used it to a lot of our Labs customers. That was my big thing, is I really wanted to get my resubscribers back. So I pushed specifically our campaign was very similar to this play. It was a unique offer that they had to take because they were our past subscribers. And so that was like, really it was a very deliberate approach to kind of re-engage before Q4 started to hit. So I would say I probably would have opened up my segment to be a little bit larger, at least on the first send.
Kind of on that audience question, so let's say if we're segmenting and there's 100,000 people that it suggests in one audience to send a mailer to, and I can only send it to 10,000 people, and we do that campaign, is it going to send it to what PostPilot thinks is the 10,000 best people to send it to? And then in that case, if it doesn't do well, should I try a different audience? Or, do you just have to go deeper into that same segment before you really get a gist of like if it's going to work for that audience?
That's a good question. Are you talking about it of existing customers or new
Prospecting.
prospects? New prospects? Yeah. So typically you're going to start with the highest propensity people in that audience and work your way down. Typically, you can reach a level of scale with prospecting that's significant before you start to really drop off in the strength of that audience. So it's not going to be like, okay, I got X result on 10,000 people. That's going to drop when I go to the next 10,000 people. It's more like I got X result on 100,000 people. You're going to see maybe a little bit of difference when you go to the next 100,000 people. So yeah, when you're testing at relatively small scale, you want to test a few different audiences and models, which we will do because those can perform differently. Once you find what's working within that, and Bryant was mentioning that too, test different audiences because not everyone is going to perform exactly the same, just like Meta. Once you find the ones that do, you can typically start to scale those significantly before you reach a point of diminishing returns.
So kind of like, yeah, if I can only send it to 50,000, maybe 10,000 to 5 different audiences,
Yes.
more worth it or better?
I think so. I think especially on the asset testing, because like it's, how many products do you have?
100.
Fuck. How would you do that? How would you approach that? Like you can't segment 100. Would you just go best sellers or top moving?
I mean, it's like two product categories though.
We do it around the customer persona. So again, you can build different models. Like when you think about Meta, you're in the learning phase when you launch the campaign, right? So it's testing different audiences. It's looking at who's engaging with those clicks and things like with those ads, and then optimizing around that. It works really the same way. It tests different types of personas and different models, and we're feeding, because again, we're seeing those transactions happen in real time because we're connected with Shopify. We're feeding that data right back into the model and optimizing it just like Meta's optimizing that essentially in real time, so that as subsequent campaigns and cards go out, you're improving it over time. And again, you're leaning into the models that tend to work. Again, just like in Meta, you've got X number of campaigns that you launch as a test. You see this one's working, these 4 aren't. You shut the 4 off, you lean into the one that is, and you start to test against that one. Same strategy.
Great, thank you.
Good question. There was one in the back. Get your hands right. There we go.
Cool. Okay. I really like the idea of direct mail. We sell jewelry online and we sell all across the United States. And so I have a practical question regarding geography. So when running a direct mail campaign or multiple campaigns, how does your company help me? How does the account executive help me decide where to send the direct mail, who to target? Do you guys go by like geographical areas? I know we talked about customer segmentation, but I'm really curious because in Shopify I can see like where my hotspots are, like where my customers are located. But do you guys have that insight, or do you recommend certain areas, or is it kind of like a blanket approach and then you kind of go from there?
Yeah, so one, you're gonna have a dedicated account manager who knows like how to build out a lot of these strategies following our best practices, whether it's retention or acquisition. On the retention side, it's more based on customer behavior. So people who have bought more than twice in the last 180 days to 365 days test that audience, test that against people who have bought once in the last 180 days to 365 days. Test it against people who have bought multiple times in the last 1 to 2 years. Get a read on each of those different audiences, and then again, you can scale into the ones that you're seeing are working for you. And on prospecting, the models are gonna work again, like Meta. If you have a high concentration of customers in California, New York, and Florida, it's gonna find that, and it's probably gonna disperse it based on your ideal customer, the demographics and other attributes about that customer. Not like we're gonna decide we wanna send a bunch to Indiana and Wisconsin and New York or whatever. So you wanna lean on like the AI and the models, just like you do sort of with Meta, to identify what are the attributes and characteristics that we're finding to be the most relevant to our customer base, and then test a few variations of that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.